Okay. Hey, everybody. Today we're going to talk about blockchain and crypto and the movie industry. And we have our guest of honor, Pam, who is in the middle of Hollywood right now. And we're talking about this article all about the different ways that, or experiments, I should say, that movie producers have been doing,
Mhm.
and also the media references to crypto that have been creeping up, as part of pop culture. So, Pam, what do you think? Do you think that more activity is happening on fundraising for films and TV using crypto, or more is happening on the Hollywood accounting, infamous Hollywood accounting side, tracking royalties, or in actually distributing these things to the public?
I don't know that aside from the things that mentioned in the article, these aren't things that I've heard of. Being in the middle of Hollywood, keeping up with industry news, I think it's very, very niche right now. Hollywood is made up of obviously the huge studios, the big networks, and then of course, all of the indie filmmakers. And one thing that this article talks about is how crypto is really going to be great for the indie filmmakers. And I think that's very true because people who are making their own movies and trying to kind of break the code and crack into the mainstream, they're always looking for an edge, whether that's how they're distributing or how they're fundraising. It is really hard to like in any industry to break into mainstream popularity. So I think that they will be more open to funding their projects with crypto. I think we need to see a lot more of, like you were talking about, mainstream media mentions of crypto and Bitcoin. I think that'll be the sign that Hollywood is starting to think about it.
Well, it talks about MovieCoin, which is a platform built specifically for funding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this has been around for a while. It's the Christopher Woodrow who did Birdman, which was an Oscar-winning movie.
Mm-hmm.
And and then there was this other thing by Wesley Snipes that he partnered with Liechtenstein Crypto Assets Exchange to create the Daywalker Movie Fund, which was a $25 million tokenized fund that
Mm-hmm.
would invest in his studio and allow investors across the globe to hold a stake. And he's a big name. I mean, I think what's happening is they're democratizing access through decentralizing. So that more people get to maybe own a stake in the films, and because it's cool to say you own a stake in a movie at a low cost, that it appeals to consumers. Maybe it's not the major studios that have dipped their toe in, although now that there's a pandemic and they're not releasing movies, this may become more popular. But this whole equity crowdfunding concept for movies and TV is interesting.
Yeah, and you're right, for sure. Those names, an Oscar winner, Wesley Snipes, those are definitely huge names. But sometimes I feel like I haven't heard of those outside of this article. Like, it's not like Hollywood Reporter that I know of did a big feature on it, and so I've heard of it. And these are already, I mean, where's the risk that they're taking? Because they don't need this money. They don't need to go this route. And it's cool that they're experimenting it, but those types of names, like if they try this new thing like fundraising, like tokenizing the funds for the movie, and they fail, are we really going to hear about that failure? I mean, like, think about it. And Wesley Snipes, like, I'm sure he has the resources to do this with actual fiat money. So I want to see somebody big, like a big studio, experiment with this publicly. And not that I'm hoping for it to fail, but I think that's the kind of spotlight that it needs to become more mainstream. But that's really cool that they are doing that, and I definitely want to check it out. But it's not something that I had heard of. I can tell you that in my acting classes, I've never once heard of anybody talk about crypto or this is a cool way to fund our film. So I think it is still very, very niche.
Right. And, you know, the other interesting thing is how Netflix has really become so dominant in the business. And there are producers who are producing for Netflix, and they don't get extra if their show is a hit because Netflix doesn't divulge the viewing figures to the producers. So it's not like the box office where you know. So blockchain could be an interesting solution to that problem, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially as Netflix starts to have a bigger stake. I think because of the pandemic, more people are on Netflix than ever. And a lot of the big theaters are releasing their films early or doing a Netflix release that they otherwise would not have considered. So as Netflix becomes kind of on par with these big studio names, I think you make a great point that producers and filmmakers, like, they'll want to leverage something like blockchain and make sure that they are capitalizing on all the viewers that Netflix is getting right now. That right now it looks like Netflix is not, like you just said, they don't release viewer numbers. So who's really benefiting from this besides Netflix?
It's Netflix, yeah. And you know, there might be some resistance because, as I said, Hollywood accounting is infamous for not wanting to disclose exactly what the production budget is and what's going into the royalties and, you know, how much they're paying the actors. And so, you know, any kind of transparency that blockchain would bring here might, you know, they may not want to adopt it, which is maybe why they haven't yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of mainstream mentions of Bitcoin and crypto, I think we're starting to see a lot more of that. I know that I believe The Simpsons did something a few years ago where they talked about it a little bit, and The Good Wife a few, like 10 years ago, maybe I think it was 2008 that they had an episode where there was like a Bitcoin criminal. Have you ever seen anything positive? Like, everything that I've seen, it's always somebody's going after a criminal and ooh, they're into Bitcoin.
Right. There was this movie Crypto, and it was a crime drama thriller about money laundering. And then Startup, which was following the lives of tech entrepreneurs. But you're right. I mean, fear, uncertainty, doubt, criminal behavior sells. You know, so that's why those plot points are included. And I guess, you know, unless you're making a documentary about all the benefits of blockchain, which people have done also, you know, you want to have the highest viewing of your film or television show. So those are going to be the plot points that are like sizzle.
Yeah, exactly. Or I think Kaminsky Method. Have you seen Kaminsky Method?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there was one character who just like randomly would talk about Bitcoin. So he wasn't a criminal, but he was kind of like, you know, the weirdo for bringing it up, which is, as you said, you have to make it sizzle. You have to like, and that's honestly like talking about the technical aspects of it, like you and I do. Maybe not a Hollywood storyline, right there.
No, I mean, in fact, CNBC did a special a year or so ago, and they had a guy living in a treehouse, literally. And they had the Wolf of Wall Street talking about it, which I don't know what he has to do with the sector at all. And then they had one woman in it, and she was running a Bitcoin prostitution ring. And that was CNBC's special on the sector.
And it wasn't a parody, right? This is CNBC.
No, it was like investigative reporting. Without any kind of like slant or bias, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So From my perspective, I mean, I think it's not surprising how cryptocurrency is being used or portrayed in Hollywood. I think, as with all innovative technologies, they're going to showcase the extreme examples on the big or small screen. And when it comes to their own adoption, you get like a martial artist or entertainer like Wesley Snipes, or an Oscar winner who, you know, the risk for them, I believe is pretty low, so they can go in that direction. But I think Bitcoin has always been like a very grassroots initiative. So I mean, I can't wait to see the first maybe indie film that makes it big internationally, and hey, like then people are going to find out that it was funded purely by a token or a cryptocurrency. So
Yeah, yeah, that day is coming, I think, soon.